a super secret location deep within the mountains of Colorado, it's time to strap up, strap in, or strap on with your host, Shenanigans in One Shot. It's From the Ashes Radio!
Ladies and gentlemen, and whatever else you may call yourself, welcome to From the Ashes on About Face Media. What the heck are you doing here? You got 1,001 other things you could be doing, but you decided to land here. Welcome to a very special show of From the Ashes on About Face Media. Thank you very much to our sponsors, Thigh Huggers and Combat Flip Flops. This would not be possible tonight without you. Folks, you ought to see this studio tonight. This is one full studio tonight. There's a lot of folks in the studio tonight. A lot of lights. Joe's here. My hetero life mate is here.
I am hearing. I am signed off.
And you look good, and that's the important part.
Thank you.
How's your week been?
That's Monday.
It is your typical
So I
Monday.
still look good. Haven't been ruined yet.
I mean, you like vacuumed. I mean, you like dusted off the table. You did all.
Yeah.
This is a heck of a night.
The only thing I missed doing was getting a black sheet.
Oh, that was my fault. I was supposed to get myself.
Oh, don't take responsibility for things. It's okay. I guess I was supposed to do that too.
I'm throwing myself on the hand grenade. I'm doing my part. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very special show for you tonight. There's not going to be any segments. We're not going to do any. There's no Allie tonight. There's no Combat Carl. There's none of that. The entire hour is dedicated to a very special guest. We're going to bring him on right away. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to From the Ashes, Chief Warrant Officer retired, Mr. Michael Durant. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey guys, doing great. I am also in a secret location in the mountains of Colorado. So,
Oh my goodness.
Are you? Well, welcome to God's country. We are glad you are here. You are a lovely background you got there. It's
Similar.
very similar.
Like-minded.
We have a very similar taste. We're gonna have to get you a couple of skateboard decks for your background.
well, I was wondering if those were skateboards or snowboards. So you answered that question.
They're skateboards, but they're done from other veteran companies that are custom done for us, or some that they do, and some different things. So
Yeah, other special operators. A guy, Chuck from Raid Skateboards, does those for us. And there's one sitting down next to me from a company.
you should hand me that one. I kind of moved that one the wrong way. Hand that one to me.
My bad, man. Here you go.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, this is a custom for us, but you made it special for us. So yeah, we're gonna have to get you a couple of those yourselves. So don't you worry, man. We got you. So
All right, sounds good.
You claim both Colorado and Alabama, don't you?
I do. We when we first bought a place up here, we thought we'd be maybe half the year up here, but we have kids and grandkids and lots of things going on in Alabama. So it's increasing year by year, but we're still maybe 2/3 Alabama, 1/3 Colorado.
We say it all the time. I don't know why people live other places besides Colorado, but I'm very glad they do.
Well,
it's a great state.
Me included, right? But no, I agree with you. I think if our family was here, we'd certainly be here full time. But we're here as much as we can be.
Yeah, and having been to Alabama, why, dude? Why?
Actually, it's beautiful. We live on a lake down there, and outside of a couple of months where the humidity is really high, which if you live here, you'd hate it. But it's just a couple of months. It's very nice the rest of the year.
So I went to flight medic school at Fort Rucker in August, and that was a horrible mistake. And we went to hoist training out in the middle of nowhere at Fort Rucker. A bus dropped us off and then forgot us. And in Nomex flight suits, we had to walk back to post in August. Horrible. I'll never go back to Alabama willingly.
But it's not like that year round. But I feel your pain. August can be bad.
My only experience of the South was sniper school and airborne school, and
so yeah,
June, July, August. So
yeah. I'm assuming that it's 60 degrees, balmy, and beautiful in like
Oh,
February.
it's amazing. It look, yeah. Couldn't ask for a better thermostat.
Mike, for some of our younger listeners, may not know the full story. Tell us about your military career. What made you decide to join the United States military? What branch of service were you? What did you do? Some of our younger listeners might not know who Mike Durant is. So why don't you tell us?
Yeah, it's been several decades really since the sort of the most significant event my military career happened. So it's not unusual to be talking to people that know nothing about it. It probably helps to say if you've ever heard of or seen the movie Black Hawk Down, then you kind of have some sense of a major event in my career. But to answer your question more precisely, I flew on a helicopter when I was a teenager, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, actually, and for me, the future didn't involve things like aviation. It was, get a normal job and go to work, which is all fine. But then all of a sudden, I'm in this helicopter as a teenager, and the guy's telling me, yeah, that you could do this as a job, and probably the best way to get trained on how to fly helicopters is to join the military. And from that point forward, I was like, okay, this is absolutely what I want to do. And Blackhawks came out, it was about the time I was getting in the military, and now that takes it up another level because I'm seeing this sleek looking machine that looks like it has advanced avionics in it, and it looks like a spaceship to me. And
It looked a little
that
different in the beginning.
sort of encouraged me even more to want to go. So joined the military, told I can't go right to flight school, but managed to get there after about 3 years and started my flight training at Fort Rucker, which is where your training was, Southern Alabama. And it was everything I thought it would be. I mean, just loved it, loved everything about it. Did well, got the only Black Hawk transition. When you graduate flight school, you transition to different aircraft. I got the only Black Hawk transition in the class, which was awesome. I mean, that was my, long range goal. Turned out to be right out of the gate. Flew in Korea for a couple of years, went to the 101st Airborne Division for a couple of years. And somewhere along the way, I'd heard about this special operations unit that had been stood up at Fort Campbell to support, all the nation's elite customers, the Rangers, the Delta guys, SEAL Team 6, Air Force Special Tactics, everybody. MARSOC didn't exist. I don't know if you guys ever talk about MARSOC or people know what that is, but it didn't exist at the time. So anyway, I applied, got accepted to go there, and that turned out to be everything I thought it would be. Was involved in multiple combat operations back to back, really for 5 years. I went to Prime Chance, which was chasing down the Iranians who were mining the Persian Gulf even back then. This is the late 80s. Then I went to Just Cause, which was Panama invasion in 1989. Then I went to Desert Storm in 1991, and then ended up in this crap hole called Somalia in 1993, which is where the Black Hawk Down reference comes from. By far the worst experience, in my military career, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it now, but ended up surviving it and returned, stayed in the military for 8 more years because I loved the unit. I loved doing what I was doing, and I stayed there till I retired after 22 years in the service in 2001.
Well, and I was going to ask that. I saw that you retired in 2001 after the Black Hawk Down, what we're calling it the Black Hawk Down incident, Gothic Serpent. After that happened, I saw that you stayed in for, a couple more years after that. What was it, 8 years after that? Did you go back to flying after that event?
I did. It was a tough battle because I got hurt really bad. I mean, I had crushed vertebrae in my spine. I had a compound femur fracture. I got shot, broken nose, cheekbone, eye socket. I mean, I was a mess. And, because I was captured, I didn't get treated right away. So I by the time it was all said and done, it was about a 15-month recovery. And initially, the Army said that I would never fly again because my spine is deformed. It still is. They didn't do anything to it. They said long-term best thing is just leave it and let your body adapt, which is kind of amazing. But that is exactly what happened. My body adapted, and it's think of the things that I can do even today. It's amazing. But it was a grounding, you could call it a grounding condition where you can't, flight status. So, I tell this story all the time. You can accept that and just say, well, crap, I can't fly anymore. I guess I got to go find something else to do. Or you can try to fight it. I decided to try to fight it. And I set the goal of running the Marine Corps Marathon in 1995, which would have been just over 2 years from the day I was shot down. And, most people never thought it would happen, but I was able to run it successfully. I ran pretty fast, actually, and submitted a waiver up through the chain of command to get back on flight status. And they gave me an upslip, and I flew for the rest of that time from 95 to 2001.
I feel like after running a marathon and what you had gone through and done, if you're ready to go, who the fuck is there to tell you no?
Exactly right. I mean, that's
if you're
why
standing there and you're like,
that.
I'm good.
Yeah, that's why I chose that strategy. I mean, most people in the military, and certainly most people in aviation in the military, they're in decent shape, but there's not a lot that can run marathons. And I thought, look, if I can do this, there's no way you guys can tell me I can't, operate in the cockpit. And it worked. And they signed me off.
You hear all the time and you see it all the time. Night Stalkers don't quit. God damn, dude. Talk about embodiment. Talk about wearing that on your sleeve. Well done. Very, very well done.
Well, I appreciate that. It was more than just getting on flight status. It was part of what you just said, to uphold the unit standard and represent well, because we got a lot of visibility on that mission. Let's see, major motion picture, freaking books. I mean, there's multiple. I don't know how many books have been written about it, but probably 10 at this point. But I sort of took on the responsibility of, I'm proud of the unit. I'm proud of the guys I served with. I want to represent them as, to the best of my ability. And it really helped motivate me, along with getting the $400 a month flight pay.
I mean, of course.
Yeah, $4,800 a year is.
Yeah. I mean, it's $400, man. That's a lot of beer. I mean, come on. $400, man. Come on now.
Oh man.
When
that's it. That's a lease payment on a Pontiac.
That's exactly what we all use it for. And it's more now. I don't even know what it is. I think it might be $1,000 now.
I'd challenge you to find a Pontiac these days.
Well, when he was getting flight pay, about $400 a month.
Yeah.
There you go.
Dude.
Oh man.
When I got the email to hey, it's time to take the test to go to special operations, my wife got me the book Black Hawk Down, and she wrote in it for me, hey, go get it. And then I get to special operations, and my buddy hands me the book In the Company of Heroes. And I read that book. Whew, that's a hell of a book, man. Tell me about writing the book In the Company of Heroes.
Yeah. So one thing about writing books, it's a little different now, I think, but in the early 90s, it was really sort of not accepted to write books about your experience in the community. So after the mission, there's all sorts of inquiries about telling the story. And I had a feeling that at some point I'd probably have an opportunity. So I sort of sketched out what I thought would make sense from a book perspective. And then I just put it away. And I put it away for almost 10 years until I retired. And then I went and talked to some of the leaders that I respected in the community. And I said, hey, I think at this point, it's probably okay to tell this story. And they said, are you kidding me? I mean, Black Hawk Down had already come out. The movie had already come out. There really wasn't much left to disclose about the mission itself. And what hadn't been told was my personal experience, within the mission. I tell people, look, Black Hawk Down ends when the battle ends. That's really when my book starts. So it's not a retelling. It's more of a continuation of the story. So anyway, I get this idea that, okay, I probably have the green light to do this now, and reached out to the only person I knew had any connection to the publishing industry, which was Ross Perot. And again, if you have some really young listeners, they might not know who Ross Perot is. Ross Perot is just an amazing American.
Chart guy.
Absolutely incredible. Really tremendous supporter of our military and special ops in particular, but under the radar. if you ever have a chance to go to Dallas, there's a museum there or in his honor. And even I, who knew him, at a very high level, but I knew him, I had no idea some of the stuff he had done. And it's all not for attention, not for headlines, but just because it's the right thing to do. Anyway, I knew that if he could, he would point me in the right direction. And again, those of us who remember him from when he ran for president, he had this saying that he would always say. He would say, "Here's the deal." So I call him up. I explain the situation. He says, "I'll call you right back." Gets off the phone. I mean, he called me back in like 3 minutes. He said, "Here's the deal. I got a guy. He's a publisher, very successful, New York City. He'll get you hooked up with the right co-writer, and we'll get this thing done. Just let me know what else I can do for you." I mean, that's just the way he was. He operated at this super high speed and got things done almost before you could even blink your eyes. So I connected with the publisher, connected with the agent, connected with a co-writer, and we had a real good synergy. That point forward, it took us about a year to write the book. There's a couple chapters that I would say I wrote almost completely on my own, but there's other chapters where Stephen Hartov, who was my co-writer, who happened to be former Israeli Defense Force guy, airborne. So, you didn't have to explain things to him. He really understood a lot, after talking very briefly about it. So anyway, good team. The guy who was the editor at the publishing company was also, good to work with. And, we knocked it out in about a year. And it did well. It was a New York Times bestseller. I'm proud of it. And, I ended up writing another book, which didn't do nearly as well, but it was still, an interesting process to go through, and I have no regrets.
So I work for a government agency, and when it came out that there's the potential that you might be on the show, somebody asked about the book, and I was like, "Oh, I happen to have a copy," blah, blah, blah. And, I wanted to have the book on hand so I could reference it while I'm talking to you tonight. I haven't been able to get my copy back. Everybody's at my office has been grabbing my book, and I haven't been able to get it back in time for this freaking interview because everybody's been reading the book. The youngest generation coming up, they're not familiar. And yeah, it's a captivating book to read. So very well done to you. And yeah, they're passing it around the office now, and people are getting caught up. It's a new generation of our nation's warfighters is reading that book, and well done to you. It's a great book, very well written, very well done. So good on you.
Well, it's sometimes hard to believe. I have to kind of convince myself it's been 30 years, but 30 years is a long time, and a lot of things have happened since then. And I think the other thing it does, in addition to telling the story, is it keeps the spirit and the sacrifice of Randy Sugar and Gary Gordon alive. A lot of people probably heard their names, but maybe didn't know the story. And this helps, fill that in. And I don't know if we're going to get to it. I'll bring it up now. But Fort Gordon, which was renamed Fort Eisenhower, is going to be renamed. I think it officially already has been renamed, but the ceremony's not been done yet, for Gary Gordon, which I'm in favor of all this. Everybody knows all these posts by their name that they've had for decades and decades, and to come up with this, what I think is a very brilliant compromise, if you want to even call it a compromise, and keep the name, but get rid of the association with something that may not be acceptable these days by everyone involved. Is just brilliant. And Gary, the post is going to be named for Gary here. I think the ceremony is mid-September, actually.
I'm sure you listen every Monday, but we have these arguments on this show every night and have these discussions constantly. So yeah, it's nothing new to you that we have these discussions constantly. So yeah, we have these arguments all the time, but yeah. And on as I'm sure since you listen every Monday, we're not going to rehash it constantly. One of the things that most of the things that we talk about on this show is what service members deal with after service. And that's essentially why we brought you on the show, is we want to talk to you about how you're doing now and the things that you're dealing with in your life after service. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you've done post-service. You've run for political office. You've supported a couple of nonprofits, such as the Special Operations Warrior Foundation.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a couple other ones that you've. So what are some of the other ones that you've supported? Correct me if I'm wrong, or help me out here.
Yeah. So Special Ops Warrior Foundation is the primary one, and then I'm also on the board for a nonprofit called Still Serving Veterans, which is it's essentially an organization that helps veterans transition from the military to the civilian world. Started out in Huntsville, Alabama, and then it's now expanded significantly. But it's a nonprofit. I'm on the board there, so I'm not necessarily directly involved in what happens day to day in the organization. I'm on the board of the museum at Fort Rucker. I'm on a couple of others that are kind of small down in the noise. And it's just, if being part of these organizations can help generate support, that's really why I'm there. Being a board member isn't really a time consuming thing. I guess you could make it that if you wanted to, but it's a few hours a month, and certainly for a good cause.
Mm-hmm. So, can you see the comments coming from our listeners? Deke Leetzen, who runs, help me out here. I never do this very well with the nonprofits. What'd you say?
Answering.
What'd you say, Joe? What is it? Veterans Expedition. Deke is amazing. He takes veterans out on like whitewater rafting trips, things like that. There is no one that's doing better things for veterans than Deke is right now. Deke's question is, what do you do for your mental health in this day and age? What you went through 11 days in captivity, I can't imagine what that had to do to your head. Talk to us about what you do for your mental health in this day and age.
Yeah, I've always said that the recovery after Somalia, or really after any traumatic event like that, for a service member, it's got 4 elements to it, right? There's the physical; they got to fix you as best they can, and I'm blessed. I mean, my spine is deformed, but it really doesn't prevent me from doing anything. Obviously, I ran a marathon. I'm running another marathon in 2 months. There's the psychological, which is the tricky one, and we're going to circle back on that because I'm sure that's really at the heart of the question. There's the professional, which, what do you do now, right? I mean, and what I want to do is get back in the cockpit, which I was very fortunate I was able to do so. And then spiritual, which is, if you're a person of faith, you either, it makes your faith stronger or it makes you question your faith. Because, I mean, how did this horrible thing happen when I was trying to do the right thing, which I think most of us who serve in the military are trying to do the right thing. I mean, our nation's trying to do the right thing. We're trying to intervene in things that make a difference in this world. And sometimes, some of us who are directly involved get a shit sandwich. On the psychological part, I will tell you that when I first started talking about Somalia, all the way back to the hospital when they're debriefing me, I mean, it's overwhelming grief. I mean, my crew's gone, my friends are gone, I'm jacked up. The operators that we were supporting took heavy losses. This is hard to talk about. But I think talking about it helped. And that may sound cliche, but I was forced to talk about it. I mean, I did the debrief, and then then we had to write up all the write-ups for the Medal of Honor and all of these things. And then when I get released, there wasn't a lot of combat in 1993 to look at from a military perspective. There was Desert Storm, but that was a bit of an unusual event if you look at it compared to, think about the last 20 years, global war on terror. It wasn't tank battles, right? I mean, it's been very different. So, and I think Somalia was that turning point. That's when we started dealing with these ragtag terrorists. That's essentially, it's exactly the same situation in Somalia. So I was asked to talk about it a lot and do briefings, and I did briefing. I mean, I've probably talked about Somalia 1,000 times, whether it's talk about, the mission or the lessons learned or whatever. And as time went by, it got easier. I mean, I will occasionally feel emotion when I'm talking about it, even today, but that's the exception, not the rule. So again, I'm not suggesting that that's the answer, but it is, at least for me, it's part of the answer. The other part of the answer was those other 3 pieces, because I'm pretty well convinced that it is those four things. And if you've got 3 out of 4, it's going to help with the fourth one because they're all interrelated. I mean, I remember, training for that marathon. And if you are a runner, I know a lot of us hate it. I mean, it's hard to put the shoes on. It's hard to go, do the training, right? It's for a lot of us, it's not a fun thing. But when it's over, you feel pretty freaking good. I mean, you feel, it's referred to as runner's high or whatever. Maybe that's not true for everyone, but it is true for me. And I think it all helps if you can figure out a way to push all these balls forward. Then, regardless of which one's lagging behind, they're all going to benefit from that sort of collective push if you can make progress in any or all of those areas. And I would say today, I don't think you can ever say you're 100% over anything like that, but I'm as much over it as I could possibly be. And again, I feel very fortunate. I had all the help I could ever ask for, and just great advice. And I guess I just picked the right advice to follow, and it's served me well.
There are people sitting in the bleachers over here off to the side, and you talked about how you feel good after running, and they're nodding. Is it right if I just take your guys' word for it? Because fuck that, I ain't running a step. If you guys see me running, something's gone catastrophically wrong in my life, and that means there's probably a bear behind me. So yeah, no, I'll just take your word
joke,
for it.
but it's just different. I feel the same way about rucking.
I don't mind rucking,
dude.
Fuck that
you
running
want
shit.
fucking leg infantry.
That's true.
Yeah, go be leg infantry and see how you feel.
No, because I did okay on the ASVAB.
Oh, good. Yeah, right. I bet you mine's higher than yours.
Okay, Blue Gourd.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Hey, I got this training program I'm doing for this marathon right now. The next run, I have to run 18 freaking miles, and I'm at 7,000 feet here. So where I run is at 7,000 feet. I'm sitting at 8,500 feet right now. So I am not looking forward to that 18 freaking miles. I can tell you that. But when it's over and I'm slamming down that chow and, getting in the hot tub, it's going to feel pretty good.
Absolutely.
I'll be there for the chow, bro. But I mean, you lost me at the 8,500 feet. Randy, you down with the 8,500 feet running? Man, fuck all that, guys. Take a nap or something.
So I ran some distance. I've ran some distance races all the way up to an ultra. I've never done it in like good Colorado elevation. It's always been lower.
Mike, you were in a helicopter crash. You can relax, bro. You're good. You've done it. Take a nap.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I want to extend this out as long as I can. And really, the number one way to do that is to stay in good shape. And that's what I'm committed to. So I'm doing my best.
Roy Gagney, I did okay on the ASVAB. Man, fuck you, dude.
Roy knows what that score is. And I know it's lower than mine.
Because he was there for it.
I know. That's why I was thankful he chimed in. I knew exactly. I was like, good job.
Oh, my goodness.
Mike, we've had a lot of, not a lot, but a good handful of authors on that have either talked about their military experience or simply written novels based on the era that they were participating in. Was that when you were writing that, you said you wrote it significantly or a little while before you released it. Was that a painful reliving process, or was that a real letting go? What was the writing aspect of that, especially considering it wasn't just like you were just saying, it wasn't so much of the leading up to and the incident. A lot of it was the post, and a lot of that is kind of like, I look at it like this way. So I'm medically retired. I think a lot about my military career really like is the start at the end of it, because the transition is such a huge part of your life. So I'm curious about that process of writing for you and how you used it.
Yeah, again, it had been almost 10 years when we got down to the real nuts and bolts of writing the book. So I'm not going to say, again, I'm not over it today. I'm not 100% over, so I wasn't completely over it at 10 years. But the fact that I had done all those presentations and talked about it, I mean, I'm not kidding. I have probably done, I think I said this earlier, 1,000 presentations, or at least talked about this mission 1,000 times. So all of that happened over that 10-year period, or good percentage of it. And getting through was not, I don't want to say it was easy. I will say this, and I haven't read the book. I've only reread it maybe once, and I can't, because it does bring it back by reading the book. But the one thing just thinking about that gets me choked up now is Stephanie Sugart's letter to me. Pretty much everybody I've ever spoken to that read the book was really moved by that letter. And that one still gets me, because, that is a woman whose husband gave his life for me and my crew. And you just have to read it. I mean, it speaks to not just, his character, but her character as well.
It's amazing the incredibly strong women that are behind some of the dudes that do some really the dudes, the guys like that.
Right. No doubt.
Wow. Okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Wow. All right. Now, where do we go from there? Holy shit, man. Mike, this new generation, our generation, the GWAT generation, talk to us. What advice do you have for us, other than the 4 pillars that you've already talked to us about? What should we be looking at? What should we be doing? What should we be thinking about? Because we're getting our asses kicked. We're kicking our own asses. We're taking our own lives. What should we be doing? What should we be doing differently? Because we're kicking our own asses here, and it's awful.
Yeah. Well, again, going back and thinking about when I transitioned out, and it wasn't an easy decision. I mean, I love the unit, I love the people, and when I decided to retire, I did it because I wanted to do it when I was still young enough to have a full second career.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to be the right answer. But the piece of advice I got from a friend of mine, who I always joke around, he's not the smartest guy in the world, but I did listen to him on this one occasion. He said, metaphorically, he says, when you walk out that gate, you got to remember you're living in their world. They're not living in yours. And you basically have to accept the fact that it's not ever going to be the same. It's just not. But you have so much positive to bring to whatever it is you decide to do. Whatever it is, whether it's be the best father or mother you could ever be, or whether it's, be the best person involved, in a company that you could ever be, or whatever it is you decide, this is my next phase of life. There are so many things that you can bring from your experience in the military, the discipline, let's think about how much shit you put up with in the military, even if you never go to combat. And so many people had the combat experience now as a result of GWAT. Average person is never going to experience anything like that. So use that as a tool, and as something that makes you better at whatever it is that you want to do, because you have tremendous potential, regardless of what you did. Again, when you talk to civilians, it was kind of shocking. You mentioned earlier, I did run for office, how little most civilians actually know about the military. We sort of take it for granted because it's been our life, and we understand at least our part of what the military is. But the average civilian out there doesn't know shit about the military. They don't, even talking about and I'm not disparaging conventional forces here at all, but they don't get this sort of the tiers that are set up within the military. To them, Delta Force is it's just a unit, right? They don't understand what it takes to just get into selection, and never mind make it through and then be successful in the unit when you're talking about people like this. And it was a bit of a surprise to me that people didn't get, the only information they get is from watching movies or reading books or whatever it is. So that's their understanding of the military. And you got to help them, fix that. I hope I didn't get off track there, but I,
No.
I was, again, very fortunate that I had that 8 years to sort of go back to normal. I think if you come out of the military straight out of combat, that's probably a little bit of a different animal than it was for me, because you go from this absolutely mind-blowing experience back to what is supposed to be normal. That's a tough transition. But for me, I came back and went back into flying, training missions, and I never deployed again to combat, but it sort of gave me that cooling off period. And then I got out when I wanted to get out, which also helps. When you feel like you're in control of what your destiny is, that helps a lot too. So I know I had some advantages. There's no question about it. But I think also subscribing to what I'm saying here, focusing what your strengths are. At one point I thought about this idea early on. We talk about our disability ratings, right? Well, what about our ability ratings? I mean, for most of us, our ability ratings are freaking high as hell, but we don't focus on that. We focus on trying to get that disability number up, which, I think if you focused on the ability, you'd probably realize, man, I got a lot to offer here. And, going back to still serving veterans, that's what still serving veterans helps people do as they transition, because, to write in your resume that I was a squad leader, that doesn't mean anything to most civilians out there in industry. So you got to translate that into, I led, a workforce of 12 people through, very challenging, dynamic physical and mental challenges. And, we were successful, and I had a, 12% retention, whatever words you can use that makes sense in the civilian world. That's what still serving veterans helps people do. And I know there's a lot of other organizations that do it as well, but you got to figure out how to translate those strengths from a military perspective into strengths in a civilian perspective.
I love that mindset. What's our ability rating?
Yeah, I've never heard that. That's like one of my newest favorite top slogans.
I'm going to get a tattoo. Mike, that is awesome.
Yeah, what's your ability rating?
That's my new, and we're going to put numbers to it. That's fucking awesome, dude. You need to copyright that shit. Write a book or something.
I did think about it when it first entered my mind, and then I just had all kinds of other shit I was working on or dealing with, and I sort of put it on the back burner. But feel free to take it. I mean, if it helps one person, then I'm glad I thought of it. Because
absolutely,
yeah.
When I take this tomorrow morning and I turn it into when I edit everything and like make it all pretty and shit and turn it into a podcast and drop it onto Spotify and stuff, I might title this our ability rating. That's awesome.
Title of the show.
Yeah.
Mike Durant and his ability rating.
That is awesome. That's my new favorite. I
love
it.
Well, good to hear. If you and I like to think I'm a problem solver. I think, I'm fairly smart. I mean, I can pick up on things pretty quickly. Those are all really, really valuable assets, right? But how do you say, that you're strong in these areas? That's the challenge. It can be done, but you have to figure out how to describe that. What you're good at in terms that are of value to someone. Because, again, we'll probably get to this, but I have my own company for 15 years. So now I can tell you what it's like on the other side, right? When I'm looking to fill a position, I'm looking to find somebody that has skills that match that position. Sounds fundamental, but I can't tell you how many times people would throw a resume at me because they knew me and say, hey, can you help me out? Can you find a job for this person or that person? That's not how it works. I mean, we don't just hire people, right? I mean, we hire people that are filling a need, a very specific need. And you have to find a way to showcase or articulate that you are the person that can fill that need, and that, gets you the interview, and then it's on you to convince them from that point on.
Well, and let's be upfront. You having that mental attitude to begin with is probably what got you into a pilot seat at the 160th to begin with. Yeah, most people don't have that to start with.
I can't argue that. I mean, there's guys that I flew with before I got to the 160th that would say, like, why the fuck are you doing that? They don't get it, and they never will. And that's okay. Again, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying there is something about those of us who strive to get into that community that makes us a little bit different. There's no question.
One of our very regular listeners and guests asked an excellent question. He has a 13-year-old and two 11-year-olds. Do you have advice for them for their future if they are considering the military? And that's an excellent question, Roy Gagne. Soon to be Chief Roy Gagne.
So this is my standard answer to that question. Somehow you have to convince them to not be afraid to fail. Because I think with a lot of young people, there's a confidence issue. There's a peer pressure issue. There's a, is this just going to be too different? It's going to draw too much attention to me. Just go along with the flow. If that young person can think about something that just would make them want to jump out of bed in the morning and go do it, they've got to be encouraged to pursue that, knowing that, it isn't going to come easy probably, but you can't be afraid to fail. If you are afraid to fail, you are never going to achieve your full potential. It's lifelong. I mean, again, I think about, okay, I went to flight school. I thought that's all I wanted. And then, Blackhawks. That's another level. And then, I want to be an instructor. That's another level. And then, I want to go to the special ops unit. That's another level. Then I want to be a flight lead. That's another level. But, it just keeps going and going and going. So you got to maintain that hunger and always be reaching for that next rung, and understand you're going to get set back, but can't fear failure.
Mike, I'm getting past a question from the bleachers over here. Curious if Mike's generation of veterans are becoming aware of the impact of service animals. We've had a few from Vietnam era and Desert Storm, but mostly from post 9/11 applicants. And this comes from one of our regular guests. His name is Mike Connors, who runs a service animal company. Do you have a service animal yourself?
I do not. We do have a dog, but he's not a service animal. He's a rescue.
All dogs are service animals.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I agree they are. But I do. No, I recognize their role, and their role not only just post military, but in the military as well.
Cool, excellent answer. Hey, how were you about to ask a question? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I heard a breath
No.
in. How much do you stay in contact with your teammates from your time in Mogadishu?
A handful stay really close. I mean, I would say weekly contact. Some sort of drift away over time. I've tried to attend every reunion that we've had, because it is a great opportunity to see people who maybe aren't connected and show up, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I can't believe it's great to reconnect with you. I will say this, what we did, I think it was the 20th. This is 20 years after the fact, and a good number of the guys, and I was flying the Rangers, so I was I was the flight lead for the blocking force, and the blocking force was the Ranger. And so the guys on my bird for that mission were all Rangers, and we're providing essentially a security element for the Delta guys that are taking down the target. So anyway, these guys, a good number of them showed up. I mean, I don't remember, I didn't count them, but I mean, I had 18 on the bird going in, and I would say there was probably 8 of them at this reunion. And I don't think they're doing much running either, by the way, because I said, there's no freaking way we get 18 of you guys on this bird today. No freaking way. But
I don't know.
Exceeding weight restrictions is what that man just said. But keep talking, Mike.
But it was great to see him. And then, back to the point of staying in touch. It's just great to see those guys and, hear about their successes as well, because most of the people that were involved in that operation went on to do some pretty great things. Not everybody, but really recovered well and were successful both in the military and post.
That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Very, very cool. Yeah. And I mean, we have constantly, I've got a bookshelf full of books written by Rangers and stuff that we constantly have on this show. And yeah, that doing nothing but amazing things for our nation and for corporate America and for industry and things like that. It's kind of crazy.
Local communities,
how
our own community,
politics, how we're taking over politics. I love that the veteran community is taking over politics and industry and art. And you can't see in our studio, we've got art hung up all over the place around us and stuff. I mean, I love what the veteran community is doing in this day and age. It makes me so happy these days. Tell us about Pinnacle. You started a company called Pinnacle that it was aviation engineering, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And it actually came out of dissatisfaction with another company that I was working for. I worked for a small company initially, and I worked for them for probably 4 years, which I loved. I mean, that's kind of a special ops environment. You know, you got a lot of people with a lot of different hats on, a lot of autonomy. Everybody's working toward the same goal. There's not a lot of politics. You can move fast, you know, make a lot of quick decisions. And I loved it. And then we got acquired by a large publicly traded company, and it sucked. I mean, it sucked. Nobody liked it. And I mean, in principle, it made sense. And I was part of the team that went to pitch us to the buyer. And, you know, we all believed in it at the time, but it didn't work out. And when I finally had enough, I said, look, all right, I've worked 7 years now in industry, small company, large company. I was business development, program manager, site manager. You know, I understood enough about how it all worked, I thought, to go ahead and do it on my own. And I just said, I'm done. And I got a business loan, and I talked to the family and said, you know, this could go south. And if it does, we'll lose the house, because, you know, banks don't just loan you money because they like you. There's collateral involved, and that's all we had, their equity in the house. So it's slow going. If you're going to try to sell to the government, it isn't going to happen overnight, you know. And our goal, we wrote a business plan. We said we thought we could land at least a contract in a year, and you know, the loan that we got, there was 2 of us, would carry us, we thought, for that year. And we were fortunate to land a small contract in 9 months. And then it's just building on that, right? You got to execute on that, and you got to go find something else that you can leverage your experience on the first thing and point to it and say, look, I did that well. I can do this for you. And, you know, get bigger and bigger. And usually you're going to be a subcontractor to somebody, because, you know, you don't have the qualifications to have, in most cases, to have a prime contract. So you got to be a sub, which also sucks. It can suck. It doesn't always suck, but it can suck depending on who the prime is. And, you know, again, execute. That's got to be the priority, because as soon as you fail on a mission, it's hard to convince somebody else to trust you and, you know, give you a contract. So, you know, and then it got bigger, bigger, and bigger. And then we started winning prime contracts because we could point to past performance. And in the end, I mean, at the peak, we had almost 700 people working, and we had contracts all over the world. I mean, we were in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, the UK, a lot of government contracts, obviously. And I'm really proud of what we did. I mean, it was almost a meteoric rise from the ashes, if I can steal your.
Look at you. Hell yeah. We need to get that man a t-shirt. Stickers on its way, Mike. Don't you worry.
All right. I got a beer fridge. I could use that.
That's happening.
but one other thing I want to mention about Pinnacle, one of the things that I tried to do, and I think I used to say I'd give us a B-. I was trying to take the culture that existed within the 160th and really all units like that and bring it to life in a civilian workforce where people were committed to the mission. Not that they would give their lives, right? But they understood, this is my role in the support of this mission. This is where we're trying to go. And the organization could fail if I don't do my part. And, you know, keep it simple. honesty and integrity, customer comes first, execute on the mission, be innovative. Don't be afraid to speak up. If you got an idea about how to do this better, please tell somebody, because, everybody sees the world differently depending on what foxhole you're in. And I can't figure out a better way to write code. You got to tell me that, this is some app I need to buy, or this some I need an upgrade to my PC, or whatever it is, to help you do your job better. And we really tried to foster that mindset. And like I said, it wasn't perfect. I wouldn't say we did, but I give it a B-. And I think it helped differentiate us from other companies that didn't have that culture.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's pretty
Absolutely.
impressive. That 700 employees, that's extremely impressive. What was the end result of Pinnacle? Where is it now?
Well, I wanted to share in the success. So we did what's called an ESOP, where the employees over time become the owners of the company, but they don't have to buy shares. It's given to them on an annual basis as long as they stay and they perform. And we did a partial ESOP, which you can do initially. And then we did a 100% ESOP where the employees own the entire company. Now, don't think that I'm giving it away. I get money for it, probably not as much as I would if I just outright sold it. But obviously my stake in the company is not just given away. And you might ask yourself, okay, well, if the employees aren't paying for it and you get money, where's the money come from? It actually comes because ESOPs are tax exempt. So there is no federal income tax paid by an ESOP. So all that money, like in a regular C Corp would pay, whatever it is these days, it changed. We were not a C Corp, but I'm trying to keep it simple. Let's just say 25% tax rate. That 25%, if you made $1 million, that would be $250,000. That $250,000 is where the money comes from to pay me. Instead of paying the federal government, it goes to me. So employees pay nothing. I get paid. And the federal government likes ESOPs because you're building wealth for everyone. So it's like a retirement plan within the company on steroids. It's not, there's no other way to generate that kind of retirement income other than giving shares in the company. So
I also don't know of much better way to get a committed employee.
Right. Absolutely.
Somebody who has,
the longer they stay, the more they get.
You're
Yep.
creating them skin in the game without having to put skin in the game as an employee,
And your shares are worth more if the company's more profitable. So maybe,
Right.
That one person that was going to just say, well, I'll finish this software code next week, might say, well, if I finish it this week, I can go off to another project and the company will be more profitable. Again, it's not 100% foolproof. That really didn't have an effect on everyone like theoretically it could. But that's the challenge that you have when you're leading that kind of organization, is to get people to understand, hey, look, you make us more profitable. That's some of that's going in your back pocket long term. And that's the theory behind it all. And then last part of it was we got an unsolicited offer from a large company to buy the ESOP, which you can do. And at that point, I'm on the board, and the board's responsibility is to do what's right for the shareholders. And we did the analysis, and it would have taken us 10 years to generate the profits that would have been generated in an instant by selling the company. So the company was sold, or the ESOP was sold, but everybody then who owned shares got their shares purchased. So I think we ended up making like 15 millionaires out of the whole thing.
Whoa.
But you got to feel good about that.
Yeah,
I should say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to brag about making 15 millionaires.
I want an ESOP. How do you do that? I want an ESOP.
Yeah.
I can't even spell it, and I want one.
Most people have never heard of it,
Those
and I
are
had never heard of
laughing.
it before. And then when I heard about this, I'm like, this can't be true. This can't work this way. And there's a lot of little snags. Don't get me wrong. It's not quite cut and dry, but it's a pretty cool way to make the transition.
Wow. All right. Well, Pretty badass, man. Check that shit out. I've never even heard of such a thing before.
I haven't either.
Mike,
There's lots of things I haven't heard of.
Yeah, that's why we do a radio show
way.
so we can hear this stuff.
Yeah, we're trying to learn ourselves.
Exactly. Mike, you have been extremely generous with your time on this Monday evening, and I sincerely, and all of our listeners sincerely appreciate your time. We have come to that point of the show where I hand you over to my hetero life mate, where he gives you all of the outgoing instructions. Seth, he is all yours, man.
All right, Mike, thanks so much. Your story was one of those stories that motivated all of us GWAT guys, you know? So either way, at the end of your show or into your time, we give you about 2 minutes. You can say whatever you want for 2 minutes. Nobody will cut you off or ruin your 2 minutes. If you go over, it's fine. If there's anything we glossed over, any things you really wanted to make sure got put out on the show or had thought about ahead of time, this is the time to make sure we close up all those things. So time is yours, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, I mentioned earlier that this thing is awful. You know, we lost 18 Americans, 70 some odd were wounded. And at its core, this mission in Somalia was to help the Somali people. And I really, really struggle with how in the hell can something so horrible have come from good intentions? Because, I mean, there's no national interest in Somalia. You know, it's still a shithole, and, you know, it's really unfortunate, but it's not something that really would affect the day-to-day lives of most Americans, but we went anyway, and we put our lives on the line, and this horrible thing happened. And it really rattled my faith. You know, I talked about that fourth pillar, and I questioned my faith for a long time. And then all of a sudden, one day, I looked around at the beauty of this earth and all the wonderful things we have in our lives, and sort of like the ability rating, instead of focusing on the negative, tried to focus on the positive and all the positives in my life, and realized that there was a reason that this all happened. And I would never fully understand it, but there's a reason, and it's bigger than me, and it's God's will. And the closest I've come to being able to, and this is going to bring it all together here, the closest I've come to being able to rationalize it was, we learned a lot from Somalia. We learned a lot of tactics. We learned a lot of things to not do. We focused on things like we were going to face in the GWAT, and I think it left us better prepared. So if I was a family member or a loved one or someone who knew someone who lost their lives in Somalia, I would say that life saved countless others as a result of the lessons learned and the 8 years we had to prepare ourselves for the next significant challenge that involves so many more people, that we did so well in a small way as a result of the lessons learned from Somalia. And I'm honored to have been a part of that amazing organization.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you. I don't know what else to say, but thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, hang on a second here. Do this. Get this out of my way. I'm not sure where this popped up from all of a sudden. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking with retired Chief Warrant Officer 4, Mr. Michael Durant. Chief, I can't thank you enough for taking the time from your Monday night to be a part of our little radio show. Sincerely, thank you for your time tonight. Really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Really appreciate you coming on from the Ashes on About Face Media. Your time is invaluable, and we really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday night. Tell Mrs. Durant we said hello, and enjoy your time in God's country here in Colorado.
I will, and thank you guys for what you're doing. I think, you know, getting the word out about, you know, some of these positive things is going to make a difference for a lot of people, and thanks for doing it.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your evening.
All right, you too.
Damn.
Dude. Wow.
That was kind of cool.
Kind of cool.
It's funny, like throughout
Kinda
life, you
cool.
get these moments in life where like you get to say, "Hey, I got to do that." We just got to sit there and talk to
Mike
Mike
Durant.
Durant.
Wow.
It was pretty fucking rad.
Yeah. That was one hell of a night. Yeah. And yeah. How are we ever going to top that? that was one hell of an interview. That was a lot. and now comes the hard part.
Hey, yeah, here we go.
You're fired. Get the
Yeah.
fuck out of that chair.
We'll see.
And now, yeah. This brings us to the part of the show, ladies and gentlemen, that is really tough. And I lost my place. I don't suppose you have my place for me, do you, Joe? You don't have my names for me by any chance? And why does this keep popping up? I'm not sure. Not sure what's going on here. Let me get it out of the way, as a matter of fact. Thanks, man. This is why I keep you around. I'll stop fucking with things. I'm not sure why it went away. Here we are. This is what I'm looking for. Do you have it? No, I don't know why that. I had it and I sent it to you, and now it's gone. I'm not sure where it went. Fucking A, I hate when this happens to me. I had it saved right here, and this always happens to me when I set something down. Super 6'4". Well, this isn't going the way I wanted it to. So we'll just, ladies and gentlemen, this is the tough part of the show. This is where the never forgotten segment of the show. I'm not going to go with what we originally planned, Joe. This is the part of the show called Never Forgotten. This is where remember the names of those that have come before us, the names that should not be forgotten. Two men gave their lives in defense of Chief Warrant Officer Durant. When you put your hands together tonight, say your prayers. I'm not going to go with what we talked about, Joe. Master Sergeant Gary Gordon and Master Sergeant Randy Shugart received the Medal of Honor that day. Please remember them when you say your prayers this evening. Look up their names, remember their stories, and remember their names, remember their families when you say your prayers tonight, and remember their names. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very special episode of From the Ashes on About Face Media. Would not be able to do it without you listeners. Really appreciate it. And everybody that's in the room tonight, really, really appreciate you all being here. Really appreciate everybody that made this possible. Gary, really appreciate you putting this together. All the folks that made it possible, including Thigh Huggers, Combat Flip Flops. Thanks for all of your help. Thanks for listening to From the Ashes on About Face Media. Folks, have a great rest of your Monday night. And yeah, we'll see you back here next week on From the Ashes. And thanks a lot. Have a great night.